Maybe in the last minute of your life, you want to be something more than a goddamn savage! Annunziare negacio. Ego sotomo automatus. Insanity. He watches the game fantasy. Wait on one. Forbidden sight. He searches under up the shadows and rises. Like this. Oh. Like being food for the immortal.
What is happening, YouTube? You are listening to the voice of Immortal Coil, your future minister of whiskey mysticism. Revolution is my name. It is the 15th of December, 2021. Fuck this van. 6:51 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it is time. It is time. It is time, my friends, to get savage. What the fuck is going on here? Good to see everybody. We got some familiar faces. We got some new faces. I'd like to bid greetings to Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective, the hardest working mod in and of the Fandom Menace. We got the lovely Sherry. What is going on, Sherry? We got the mighty Random Brad creator, the Thunder from Down Under. And we got His Highness, the Wookiee Supremacy. Welcome all savages, my friends. I'd like for you to lift high wherever it is you are imbibing and join me in the savage salutes. Here is to us. What's like us? Not a goddamn thing. Tastes like moral fortitude, something this planet is in a short supply of. This will be a good time to remind you that the Savage Show is not for children. If you have any small ones or weak-minded little darlings, please put them to bed. You do not want them to hear too many fuck words at this tender age in their development. The Savage Show may contain strong language, sensitive subject matter, images, and content intended for a mature 18 or older audience. Viewer discretion is advised. This video contains copywritten content. However, under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17 of the U.S. Code, this content is presented for the purposes of education and entertainment through the use of parody, satire, critique, analysis, and or social commentary by means of subjective opinion. We are not doctors. We are not lawyers. We do not dispense with the legal advice or medical advice. We are just honest savages. Immortals from savage lands. What is happening? We got Wook, burn it down. That is what I am tending to do. My friend, my good friend. Saw some bullshit in the news today. I thought I'd come and sound off about it. It's good to get savage. Good to have technical support as well. Got to be able to call some fuckers here and there. All right, we won't get too feely good before we get started. We actually have some somewhat sad business to attend to real fast. A good friend of ours, somebody who has given incessantly to the community, given voice, given platform, is in need of some help. Yes, he won't say it, but I sure will. Our good friend, author Stephen Walton, says he needs help for January, monetary help. He is asking for $1,400. He is currently at $300 through 8 donations. I am one of those people. If you have it within yourself to give, please do so. Stephen is a dork sometimes, but his heart's in the right place and he needs some help right now. And I know that it's not easy for him to be asking. Says, hello, my name is Stephen and I need a little help. Every year I save up for winter when the work slows down from late November until sometime in January, early February. Today, I discovered that one of my accounts had been compromised. Thankfully, my bills are up to date, but the money that I had saved for some Christmas shopping for my son and rent for January is all but gone. I'll do all I can myself, but my primary concern is rent. Next year, I will be okay once I get to mid-January, but as for the rest, I am willing to do whatever I can. I'm single father. I am a single father who needs help. I'd appreciate whatever you can do. Thank you. I also thought you were an author, Stephen Walton, but apparently the situation is so dire he did not run spell check or grammar check on this little paragraph. So if you have it to give, please go and donate to Stephen's GoFundMe. I'm going to ask if a mod can place that in the chat description for me. We'd be very much appreciative of that. Stephen is a friend of the show. He's been on the Savage Perspective several times. He is the ringleader of the Rogue Entertainment family of channels, as well as a friend of Trees. He deserves all the help we can give him. We love to give him shit, of course. We love to meme the fuck out of him, but when it gets real, and it is getting real, we want to show him that we are humans and brothers and sisters as well. So give if you can. All right. That is enough of the public goodwill and service. I have a couple of things to bitch about, and it's funny because a lot of times the exact shape of the program is not determined until like the day of broadcast. And I had, as I do, I collect news stories and minutia and just weirdness, shit that pisses me off, shit that inspires me, shit that's just floating in the edge of my consciousness. And this week, for whatever reason, most of it ended up being about Star Trek. Now, I know that most of us in the Menace here are here because of Star Wars and the poor choices and the schlick shittedness that's been going on with that particular IP. But many of us here are also Star Trek fans as well. Star Trek, of course, has gone through similar phases of bullshit. Not necessarily a selling of the IP necessarily, but those in charge of the IP have been given over the keys of the kingdom to just ill-intended subhuman garbage that have no idea why the show was even created in the first place. Now, are you like me? Yes, look, really. We're going to talk about some Star Trek. I know. And if you're like me, not Wook, I know he's a brutal savage, but his appreciation for Star Trek should deepen as we get on with tonight's program. If you're like me, your parents probably meant well, but did not have all of the tools to accurately show you what adults should act like, how they should comport themselves, how you should navigate the world. What are the values that we hold dear? What are the things that we are willing to live and die for? If they did, then I commend them and go give them a hug and a kiss if they're still living. If they did not, and you were like me, oftentimes you probably looked towards entertainment luminaries, whether they're creators, whether they're actors, whether they're storytellers, to help you inform your sense of ethics, to help you decide where you stand in this thing we call life. Cynics will tell you that Jedi are just space wizards for kids. Jedi mean something. Cynics will tell you the Federation is the ultimate capitalist society and it needed to be brought down. Fuck you. The Federation meant something. The Federation showed that when humanity grew out of its infancy and its tendency towards cannibalistic belief systems, that we too could go out into the galaxy and that there are other civilizations waiting to join hands with us and forge together on a common destiny. Intelligent species. These things have been targeted by assholes on purpose because those things gave us too much hope and gave us too much vision and took our heads too far off of this fucking planet and off of topics like immediate survival, fear, the dark side they are. We're going to get into this stuff because the attacks that I saw on Star Trek this week, both from within and from without, warrant epic rants. And then if there's enough time, we're actually going to look into the state of the art of humanity's current space aspirations and what exactly that can mean for our future. And that's really the larger question, isn't it? What type of future, humanity, are we trying to weave for ourselves? Is it one where we take a knee and give away our fucking authority to some outside source, to where we say, yeah, you know better than we do. We'll just wait here for our food pellet and then you can tell us when to go to work, okay? No. Fuck no. Nobody listening to this right now believes that. Everybody, I know everybody knows what our destiny is, and it is to stand up and be taken notice, to be counted, to do that thing that you know inside yourself you are capable of doing, because you can do that thing better than anybody else. That's why you're here. Shows like Star Trek taught us that and reinforced that. At least it used to. Now, I looked high and low for a actual article source, and the only thing that I could find that spoke to the point of this first thing that I saw is a video from Mecha Random. Now, love her or hate her, the YouTube's favorite fucking harpy, as it were. This is the first way that I saw it, so I have to give Mecha credit for this one start of a topic. So I won't play her whole video. It's not a long video anyway, but we do need to get to at least the screenshot so that I can properly vent about this. So check this out. I'll pause it when it gets to the part.
I had to stop and interrupt Rob while he's in the middle of finishing up some of my editing that I sent him off to do. Rob, how you doing? How you doing?
You really want to know?
You really want to know?
I'm looking at this and I feel dumber having read it.
So yeah, what did I have him look at here? As if you didn't know already. This comes from Major Grin's channel. This has been going around the Twitters today. That Heather Kadin, one of the 23 idiot producers of Star Trek Discovery, she does not understand what Klingons are. They have always been portrayed as they're the bad guy, period.
All right. That's quite enough of that. Now go listen to Mecha Random. You can go and thumb up on that video and say Coil sent you. But that idea right there, okay, this woman is an executive producer on Star Trek Discovery, on Star Trek the fucking Final Frontier, whatever the one that Rebecca Romaine, Uncle Jesse's wife, is going to be flying on as #1. And this woman right here says that Klingons have always been bad guys, have always been portrayed as the bad guy. And I want to ask how the flying fuck you get to a position of executive producer on a TV show that you know nothing about. Like, I'm so mad I fucking can't remember this bitch's name. Wook says she's a lizard person, obviously. Tommy opines that Mecha is a nutbag. You know, she does get emotional at times, but I do have to give credit where I find videos. And especially not being able to find this necessarily on a news outlet. And trust me, I scoured the internet. But obviously this is a video, and those are the captions where this woman has said that very, very evil thing. Okay? Now, I am going to go into some Star Trek lore because I love Star Trek, okay? I have this relationship with Star Trek. And part of who I am today, part of what went into the Savage, part of what went into the Immortal came from what I learned from Star Trek. Okay. Now, when I was a kid, my father tried to get me to watch it. And probably before the age of 12, I tried as a courtesy, but I really didn't get it. Because I think that for shows like Star Trek, your brain has to bake a little bit before you get what it's about. It seemed slow to me. But that's because they were actually talking about real shit. And it wasn't all just star battles and all this shit going on. Now, this woman, this Kato Kalin looking woman, says that Klingons were always meant to be bad guys, to be the foil. Okay? In the beginning, Klingons were certainly painted that way. But even back in the 60s, there was a larger plan for the Klingons. And I even think I might, this is probably going to be practice for a video that I'll eventually make on the topic, because who the Klingons ultimately are and became is something that is worth discussion. And the thing that they're trying to turn the Klingons into under this J.J. Kurtzman drivel trek is obscene. It's sick. It's obscene. We got Tim Possible in the house, hailing frequencies open. What is up? What is up? Tommy coming in saying he retrieved highly sensitive tech from Star Trek, and it is now being used to further the guinea pig collective's pursuit of assimilation. Yes, sir. So you can see Star Trek means a lot to people. Star Trek terminology has entered the popular lexicon. People know what live long and prosper is, even if they haven't watched a single fucking episode. But the Klingons, okay? Got to get properly libated to learn about some Klingons, all right? Klingons were originally presented as a foil to the Federation. whereas a federation was supposed to be something like a republic. The Klingons were presented as an empire, and empires are ruled by conquerors and sort of subject to martial law. Entire star systems subject to martial law, to the whims of the Klingon emperor or supreme commander, whatever the fuck. They were shown at some points as one-dimensional bad guys. You know, you're here, you cross the line, I'm going to blow your ship up. You know, they were made really famous in the Trouble with Tribbles. Tribbles do not like Klingons for whatever reason. Their biologies just don't get along. And they make this terrible fucking vulture eating a cat sound. It's just bad. There was a Klingon named Arn Darvin who changed himself to appear human in order to poison a shipload of grain. You know, these are the things that I would have thought Star Trek executives would know by heart in order to even qualify to work there. But apparently that's not the case. And especially because of the goals of J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot and this whole 25% different thing. Okay. Their entire procurement of the IP is predicated on 25% difference. And because of their association with Star Wars, I'm tending to think that's the case in that franchise as well. But essentially, they do not need to license older products if it's at least 25% different. So that's why we have the Enterprise, but it's not really the Enterprise. That's why we have Spock, but it's not really Spock. That's why we have Captain Pike, but it's not really Captain Pike. That's why we have number 1, but it's not really number 1. That's why we have Klingorks and not Klingons, because they are meant to be an analog for whatever the SJWs are trying to say is bad. Klingons, as they were written in the original canon, were meant to show humanity a darker portion of themselves, a portion of themselves that they felt that they had evolved out of. Because as numerous memorable classic Star Trek episodes say, humans had evolved out of those tendencies. But when we flew out into space and we found some space assholes who were not letting us just simply do our thing, well, sometimes you have to manifest who you are not in order to be who you actually are. That's the savage fucking perspective right there. I am a savage. I will act savagely if pushed. Do I want to do that? Do I want to be that guy? No. Not if I don't have to be. But if somebody makes me, then yes, you're going to get a fucking response, aren't you? Don't poke the bear. You'll draw back a stump. Now, in original Star Trek, there were those confrontations, but on a very, very good episode, the Organian Peace Treaty happened. Okay? There's an episode of Star Trek where Kirk and Spock are masquerading as primitive aliens. And they go down on this planet, and these guys all look to be farmers and sheep fuckers and just, you know, sandal wearing idiots who could do nothing but grin. They're down there trying to create a peace treaty with them, and then who fucking shows up? The Klingons. And then they take over the whole planet and start to institute martial law. And these dopey apparently goat fucking motherfuckers won't lift a hand in retaliation. No revolution was to be had. They simply went, all right, you guys can be here. I guess we'll heil the fucking Klingon Empire and blah, blah, blah. But you know what happened? The Klingons didn't like that. Part of their thing was that they were a warrior-like species and they wanted to conquer something. And when the people that they were hoping would put up a fight didn't fight, they were like, what's wrong with you? And then Kirk and Spock is like, what's wrong with you? You know? It's like, why don't you want to fight? What's here that's not worth fighting for? Don't you live? Don't you value your individuality, your freedom? And the goat fuckers try to tell Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock that it didn't matter. And maybe they should have listened, but the point that they ended up making and the way that they made this point is classic Star Trek. This is Errand of Mercy, I believe. I'm like 90% sure. Just have to check Google. TOS. Yep, Errand of Mercy. Okay. This is classic Star Trek. Go look it up. It's good shit. So Kirk and Spock are like, look, if you guys are just going to be dopey goat fuckers, then sit here and fuck goats. We are going to resist because we don't believe in tyranny and we can quite possibly die. And if you guys don't care about that, then at least we won't be around to live as prisoners on our fucking knees like assholes. So goodbye. And then they went and blew up a munitions dump. They got caught. And then we find out who these goat fuckers really are. Apparently, every last goat fucker there had actually evolved past the need for physical incarnation. They existed as energy beings who still interact with the physical universe. And because they received visitors, they lowered their vibration down to the point where they could approximate corporeal bodies. Now, because they were energy beings, the laws of physicality did not necessarily apply to them. They had developed also their mental acumen to the point where weaponry and food and shelter and clothing and heat and all that kind of stuff did not have any bearing on their day-to-day. So what did they do? They prevented the Klingon Empire and the Federation from fighting, because also in that episode, it came down to war. War was declared, but the Organians forbid them from fighting everywhere in the galaxy. And they spoke some immortal words that an immortal will speak to you. They said, we know that you can't conceive of anything but fighting right now, but in the future, you will indeed become fast friends. And this fucking bitch who does not understand that, somehow gets qualified to write Star Trek. What in the fucking fuck, my savage friends? What coming back saying, the weird thing to me is that everyone watched the same people completely destroy Star Wars and everything else, but are completely surprised when they did it to Trek. No one cares about anything until it's bashing down on your own door. Well, yeah, that's where J.J. Abrams came from. A matter of fact, Kathleen Kennedy and company saw that he probably knew how to do a space movie because he started off doing Star Trek. Now, it's funny, when the first Star Trek movie came out with Chris Pine and all those motherfuckers, my father-in-law at the time said he didn't want to see it because it wasn't old Trek and that he didn't like the people who were handling this. I was like, fine, the movie's not that bad. This is before Benedict Cumberbatch was rebooted and all that stuff. But he was right. And sure as shit, when they first started making a new Star Wars, they went to that motherfucker. And the terms were the same shitty terms. It's like the shit sandwich. being applied to another slice of bread. And instead of using Jiffy peanut butter shit, they used Skippy peanut butter shit. Now you could substitute Jiffy for Star Trek and Skippy for Star Wars, but it's still the same shitty sandwich. Nobody likes it. Nobody asked for it. Nobody is doing good by eating shit. But the networks are saying it's good for you. Hollywood studios are saying this is good for you. It tastes like shit, but you'll get used to it. This is Star Trek, remember? You like it. This is Star Wars, remember? You like Star Wars, right? Right? The Klingons. Worf was a Klingon. Now, last week or the week before that, I went off on a big fucking thing about Lieutenant Worf. Okay? Lieutenant Worf, his responses, his system of honor, his personal way of expressing himself, and especially the fact that he grew up outside of his own society, and it shook him to the core when he went back to his own planet, and Klingons were not acting like Klingons ought. He got so mad he killed some motherfuckers. Maybe you've seen my thumbnail for this show tonight. Lieutenant Worf, and the stories written about that guy to a point. You know, Worf kind of became a played out crutch when he started appearing in every fucking Star Trek series. But to a point, his journey is flawless. Now, there were some clunkers there. I'm not going to say every fucking last thing was good, but Worf was a good idea. Worf was a good idea. And this bitch thinks that Klingons were just bad guys. Indeed, Wook. A wise man once said, everything woke turns to shit. Absolutely. 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 So, I actually did find out that this bitch, she was promoted up and out. There was like a Doomcock video where he was talking about that not too long ago. I know everybody here is not a big fan of Doomcock either. But you gotta be aware of what everyone's saying. You know? Now I thought for a sec, that's probably, that's probably gonna be like all the Star Trek shit I have to discuss. But no, actually, it wasn't. I was minding my own business, just kind of, going through the twatter, as it were. When lo and behold, what did we see? So this is my twatter. Everybody here probably knows me from Twitter, from one chat or another. If not, here I am, Immortal Coil, one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind, never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live, too rare to die. And this little tweet right here from Bounding into Comics, and it wasn't actually the Bounding into Comics portion of it that initially caught my eye. It was a tweet from Mark with the C, the Gospel according to Mark with the C. Highly upright and savage motherfucker. I recommend his channel wholeheartedly, as much as I would recommend Snow Dub and all those motherfuckers. Mark with the C is a real motherfucker, and I saw him responding to something that LeVar Burton was responding to. So this Bounding into Comics article or fucking link or whatever says, Star Trek, The Next Generation star, LeVar Burton says Geordi La Forge never finding love was racist. Those white men who wrote the show had an unconscious bias that was on display to me and to other people of color. And there's poor Geordi, dried up dick and everything on the holodeck. The only place where I think he ever got any play. The sad little thing actually got LeVar Burton to tweet. He says, correction. My comments to Rolling Stone were critical about the writer's insistence on the tired trope of the nerdy guy being uncomfortable around women. I never mentioned love. You did. Twice in your opening paragraph. Geordie. So I say, I don't know, man. One of my personal top 10 transfigurations, John Doe helped your character find something inside himself that translated into the kind of confidence that Christy Henshaw responded to. Then he taught us how to transcend the physical shell. Those are show plot points. Really good episode, too. This dude's dying. He's lying in a crash. Geordie had just struck out. And this alien, like his body's changing, and he has this pulse of energy going through him. He's able to heal people, and he awakens something in Geordie, and Geordie goes out and gets laid. Imagine that. Snowdub says you recommend the puppets. Brave of you. Hey, spade's a spade, right? Good shit is good shit. The only thing I don't really like on your channel is that camel guy who shows up sometimes. I think it's his fault that I have only less than 400 subs. I think he has something to do with it. But I digress. Okay. Now, LeVar Burton, this is an old sort of wound that LeVar Burton has, this old disagreement that LeVar has. He says that one of the biggest problems that he had with the writers back in the 80s was that every other major character had some sort of relationships or love interests or something, but his character was not given a love interest. And he's chalking it down to racism. Okay. Now, I am not going to pretend that 1980s Hollywood was devoid of racism. Even on a show like Star Trek, where it was more progressive and forward thinking, I'm sure that through studios and all that shit, black actors encountered genuine racism. Not the same kind of puppet racism that's being held up by SJWs. I'm talking about actual fuck you, you're black, you're only going to have 5 minutes on screen kind of racism. You guys remember the season 2 episode of Star Trek where they went to Black Planet? Like Chief Gumbo or whatever went and captured Tasha Yar and made her fight his actual queen. And they were wearing turbans and like sparkly vests, and they shaved their chests and, probably jumped around and sang Ooga Booga around the fire. That's real racism. That was real caricaturing, and I think Michael Dorn and Whoopi Goldberg and fucking LeVar Burton and all just they knew what was going on. Now, to have a disagreement with the writing staff is one thing, but to say that your character was not given, in your estimation, the all-important love interests is evidence of racism, I think is going a little bit too far, LeVar Burton. Now, I love you. I love this show. I loved reading Rainbow. But that doesn't mean that this can make you right all the time. It's the same thing. I love Mark Hamill's performances as Luke Skywalker, but there are things that I do not agree with about that man. And it's just one of those things. But I also think that a man and another man can disagree on certain things and still be civil about shit without having to go and insult their entire being. It's enough to say, hey, we disagree. But the love life of Geordie La Forge did not turn out to be a compelling Star Trek. And honestly, there are things that happened to Geordie that I think were far more interesting than was able to happen for other crew members, because they weren't sitting around talking about, gee, I wish I had a girlfriend. You know, Geordie La Forge, he had like cybernetic eyes. He could see the entire spectrum. He could see an aura around Data. You know, he got injected with some sort of alien DNA and started changing his species. He started turning into a different fucking form of life. He got to interact with like a probe. He knows how to take apart the Enterprise and put it all back together. That's some cool shit. And you're bitching about Geordie didn't have a girlfriend? Geordie got it on plenty. Now, he got it on in the holodeck. Maybe not as much as Reginald Barkley, but he got it on. You know? I just think that years and years after the fact, to still carry this kind of thing. Now, if I want to play devil's advocate, maybe he was baited into making that response, but racism as clickbait is just bad writing. There has to be other ways to sell articles than to bait people into thinking racist things or thinking along racist lines or thinking about racism in some way that's not forward moving for the species. And writers like this would like to pretend like the 1960s never happened. And even worse writers want to institute the things that the civil rights movement tore down as a solution. You want to go back to having black only areas where white people can't interact with them, or that they can't interact with other people. That's fucked. What's separating ourselves from our fellow men going to achieve? Men and women, whatever. You know what I mean? What is the goal of social engineering and identity politics? It's to get you to over-identify with the body. If I think you are a thing rather than a being, then I will think different things about you. Do you really want me to see you as a black man or a white man or a human or huwoman or whatever the fuck? I'm more interested in the spirit, that savage spirituality, right? That thing inside of us, the thing from the other side, the person, the part of you that responds to the letter I. Who is the I that is me? And is that all the same with other people? Yes. Yes, I think that that is true. I think that we all come from that same place, the origin of the spirit. And that is the thing that they are trying to keep us from focusing on when they invented things like identity politics and religion. Because we have far more in common than we have out of common. The only thing that we have that's not in common with somebody else is something that somebody else put in their goddamn head. And it's some old artifice of human culture that might not have been humanity's idea to begin with. What does that mean? Back to the chat. Random Brad saying, it's been a long time, but yep, Geordie had a great story arc. Yes, he did. I actually found that Geordie's friendship, I should say. Man, I can't even say relationship anymore without people thinking about homo shit. Geordie's friendship with Data, I thought, was a great learning tool, right? Everybody wanted to treat Data like a thing, but Geordie treated him like a person. And in fact, there's an episode where Geordie's sitting there like working on Data's brain or something. And Geordie goes, Data, I just really can't get used to seeing you that way. And Data says to Geordie, well, why not? You're constantly working on similar systems and, pieces of engineering. And Geordi goes, well, because you're not just another system, Data. And Data's trying to be sweet, but he goes, thank you. Nor are you another biological organism. You know, and that's human. That is human. That is the kind of thing that makes you want to be more than the sum of your parts. Okay? Now, this is also opposite of the goal of identity politics, because they want you to identify with your body so much that you confuse who you are with your physical vehicle. Ooh, what a concept. Imagine that your physical body is just a vehicle for experience. It's not so hard for you to imagine that. I know that. If you're listening to words like this, then at some point in your life, you've come across that concept. Hey, maybe my physical biomatter is just like a vehicle for experience. And whether you want to call that experience for your soul or for your mind or for your intellect, whatever. You are more than just an animal that gets hungry and has to fuck and sometimes has to kill. You have dreams, you have ambitions. You close your eyes at night and you fly. You wake up in the morning and you have the urge to create, to be unique, to stand up and be counted. And then you turn on a TV and a show like old Star Trek tells you that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And you go, And you turn on Star Wars and you see a guy who can move shit with his mind and he fights with light. And you go, And then some asshole who doesn't want you to do that buys both properties and goes, oh no, it's just space wizards. Nah, it's just the Federation. It's just, it's like the United States. It needs to come down. We're going to change the story. Yeah, we don't want you to do that stuff. And even more insidious is that these are IPs that traditionally, for people our age, okay, now I am 40. I'm a straight white 40-year-old, right? The blood enemy of all these SJWs, and not from my declaration of war. No, I'll pick up my axe and fight like a farmer, if I have to. I don't want to. I'd rather be growing trees, right? For Steven, for our poor penniless Steven. But if you insist on making yourself my enemy and then you come at me sideways, well, then I have no choice to introduce you to the ground, don't I? And I will do so with sorrow in my heart, for I do not desire to fight, but fight I will if I must. All because you won't listen. All because you insist that we are bodies only, and that the bioprogramming in the past did this to one other biocomputer body matrix thingy, and the past has some bearing on this moment now as we stare into each other's eyes. Is that what you're telling me? So maybe we should forget those stories, and maybe just maybe we can make up our own story. One where we talk to each other like people. How about that? That's scary. You know why? Because it's what we're not supposed to do. Thank you, Random Brad. He's dropping the link for Steven once again. Hop on his GoFundMe, drop him a couple bucks. Motherfucker needs it. Star Trek means a lot to me. Star Wars means a lot to me too, but for different reasons. Star Wars reflects in some very real ways some of my beliefs about metaphysics. Mainly in what we can achieve if we trained our third eyes as much as we trained our biceps or our abs or something like that. The best books I've read on the topics will say that the third eye is a muscle, just like anything else, and it has to be used in order to be developed. And the sort of things that we hear about in Star Wars, as far as force feats, George Lucas era. I'm not talking about Kathleen Kennedy and all that shit. Fucking force Skype bullshit. But most of the other things that we saw are things that have been recounted in human history, observed by witnesses. Now, they're usually attributed to saints or, people who walked with God or whatever. But what does that mean exactly? What were those people willing to do and take themselves through that normal people don't because they're too busy, I don't know, going to work? What if you spent as much time trying to move something with your mind as you did learning how to operate Windows? What do you think would happen? I bet you could do it. Maybe you have done it and you just haven't told anybody. Ooh, wouldn't that be interesting? That's what Star Wars was for me. Also, that story about what if you raised the chosen one and then handed him over to the devil because of your own arrogance as a monolithic institution? That's the other thing I get from Star Wars. Star Trek mostly was morals for me. What good people ought to do. Now, Star Wars will talk about it in terms of light side and dark side. The easier, quicker, more seductive choice is the one that might produce immediate results, but it's the one that will cause you to crash and burn ultimately. While the light side choice is always going to be harder. I saw real good dudes. I mean, you want to talk about Worf again? Klingons not being good guys? Worf accepted discommodation to protect less honorable men because he loved his empire so much. Worf was the superior character, but he constantly ate shit because, in that very real Batman way, because he knew he could. They needed somebody to be cast as a villain. Well, I will fucking take that. And what did Picard say? I loved what he said. He said to Kern, Worf's brother, don't forget what he does here today. Don't let your children forget what he does here today. And I swear to God, in my own times of turmoil, when I knew that I was getting treated unfairly, I thought about Worf. And I was like, that motherfucker lived with a mark on his name for years. And he didn't need to convince everybody that he was right because he knew he was right inside. And sometimes when shit sucks the most, that is what will get you through. If you know that inside your core, you are right. Being right is one thing, but it's also a mark of personal mastery to know that you don't need everybody in your immediate sphere to agree with you or trumpet you or laud you. To agree with the fact that you're right, to know that you're right. And sometimes that's the harder fight. If everybody tells you that you're wrong, but you know you're right, walking with that, it's goddamn savage. Is it not? Shit like this has kind of been going on for me personally all week. So it's interesting to see, and I kind of play a little game with the universe. I'm like, I'm feeling a certain way. Why is that? and I'll pose that question openly, and then I'll see what happens. And then little stories like this trickle in. It makes me think about who I am, who I want to be, how I can transform this fucked up moment into a moment of, I don't know, personal triumph for the glory of the Empire. Random Brad says it's time for a beverage. I will drink to that. To my 3 listeners listening to me pontificate. That's okay. This topic has got me going. This misuse of Star Trek. Okay, now we were just talking about Picard. Picard has a terrible show where they're just completely shitting on the Federation. Star Trek Discovery shits all over the Federation. And now some of this I know has to do with the actor's own personal sense of politics and correctness in the world and all this kind of stuff. But you also have to evaluate whether the art that you participate in is doing something for humanity, or is it just stroking your own ego? You know, Star Trek meant something. Captain Picard meant something. Lieutenant Worf meant something and stood for something. Data meant something. Showed us something about ourselves. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Bones McCoy, fucking Scotty. They all mean something because of the archetypes they represent. In a good, long, natural life, you will pass through versions of those archetypes. You'll be an idiot on Tatooine like Luke Skywalker was. Maybe you'll be cruel like Uncle Owen has to be because you have a dumbass in your life. You know, and it's kind of that thing where you're a kid and you're watching the 70s show and you're like, oh, Eric's kind of funny. But then you're an adult and you're like, man, fucking Red Foreman, that's the motherfucker right there. You know, you pass through these different identities. It's like the tarot card pack. You start off as the fool and then you wind up the mage. Hopefully, if you're paying attention, if you learned something. Now, hopefully also you will stand next to giants. You will have good people in your life to remind you why you fight the fight. Why it's good and just that you should do so. Why it's worth going on. And especially in those moments where you don't feel like going on. You just got to look at the people next to you. Because maybe you don't know it. Maybe they're the ones helping you get through your shit. And maybe you're the one helping them get through their shit. We're all in this shit together. That's the savage perspective. We are all one. Physically, metaphysically, metaphorically, all that kind of shit. We are all on this fucking planet walking together, trying to do our best. And the sense of oneness, that is what those who are doing this ill design is trying to rob from you. Your center, your potential, your ability to determine for yourself. They want you to acquiesce. They want you to kneel. They want you to give up your choice. They want you to come to the conclusion that they've predetermined for you is correct. But who knows what is better for you than you? Nobody. Your potential, your contribution to the universe is yours and yours alone to claim. Do not let anybody ever stop you from doing so. My name's Immortal Coil. This has been the Savage Perspective. Go ye forth, my friends. Be savage. Be yourselves. Be true. Here is to us what is like us. Not a goddamn thing.